Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Saturday, February 15th. Before we get into today's plays of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up giving out a look-ahead line for a matchup on Saturday in the XFL between the Renegades and the Wildcats, and that game should be taking place some point tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully we're able to pick out a victory. We ended up taking -4 at -110 on FanDuel. With the Renegades, that line has gone up to roughly -115. I expect to see that line cross 5 or even 5.5 closer to kickoff, but that remains to be seen. But for today's card, a lot of college basketball, as they are still in the middle of All-Star Weekend in the NBA. There's a couple of games here that I like in terms of value, and those will be the play of the day. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in and start out with a matchup between DePaul and Creighton. These two matchups are in no particular order, by the way, but for DePaul and Creighton, we actually are looking at the total here, and we like the over, which is currently at 147, and that is available on FanDuel at -110. So the first play, once again, is Creighton and DePaul over 147, which is available on FanDuel at -110. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we like the over in this spot. First of all, these teams have already played each other earlier this season, and the matchup ended up totaling 151 points. They've already played, and it's already gone over this total once. I think this total is priced a little bit too low. Second of all, Creighton has been really solid offensively all season long at home, but particularly over the last couple of games, home or away, they've been absolutely rolling. They've won each of their last two games by scoring either 94 points against St. John's and 87 points against Seton Hall. The Seton Hall one was on the road, so that was even more impressive. Meanwhile, DePaul defensively has been pretty underwhelming lately. Gave up 79 to St. John's, gave up 76 to Marquette, gave up 76 to Georgetown. Really not playing well defensively, and I think Creighton should be able to shoot the lights out once again in front of their home fans in Omaha. Creighton has the ability to put up 90 points in any given game, and DePaul, who is currently 1-10 in conference play, has been struggling lately as they have lost each of their last 6. Offensively, though, they are averaging roughly 73 points per game, whereas Creighton is averaging 77.7 points per game, and both teams are hovering around 45 to 46% from the floor. So I think you should see a decent amount of points in this game. The issue, though, would be DePaul's free throw shooting, as they are one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the entire country, and they're the worst free throw shooting team in the conference. But the teams have already played each other, it's gone over, and Creighton's offense has been cooking. So for me, I think this total is a bit too low. I think this line should be somewhere in the 150s. I think this game will end up somewhere with Creighton scoring 80-something, DePaul scoring 70-something, and this game should get into the 150s. So for that reason, I think there is value with the over in this spot. Plus, the line has gone up from 146 to 147 already, and that is still on the overnight, so I expect this line to climb up to somewhere around 148, 149, potentially even higher before opening tip. So for that reason, I think there's value here on the over, and that's why we're going to be taking it as the first play of the day. Now, the second play of the day is going to be on a matchup that's going to be taking place between Colorado and Oregon State, and we like Oregon State here plus the 2, which is available at -109 on DraftKings, and that will be the second play of the day. Now, even though you could take the money line with Oregon State at +112, which I probably will have a sprinkle of myself, I think the value there is just there at +2 at -109, especially since, there's not much of a difference between FanDuel, but -110 and -109, might as well take the better line there. But Colorado's coming to this game off a little bit of an emotional low. They were beating Oregon on the road for a decent portion of the game and earlier this week, and they completely imploded in the second half, and they ended up losing that game by 8. I think some of that will carry over into this game. Colorado's ranked, they're 16th, but at the end of the day, you're up 9 at half, you get outscored by 17 in the second half, you have a chance for a huge statement win in conference play, and then you fall apart in the second half. Meanwhile, Oregon State, even though they are 15-9 and they're just 5-7 in conference play, they have won each of their last 2 games. They did manage to beat Oregon by 10 points at home, and then they were able to beat Utah by 19 at home. Oregon State might not be the greatest team in the world, but they're pretty solid, and in terms of home court advantage, they have one of the best home courts in all of college basketball. Colorado has struggled a bit on the highway this season, as they are 3-4 straight up and against the spread on the road, whereas Oregon State is 10-3 at home, and they are 9-4 against the spread at home this season. I think Oregon State should be able to take care of business in front of their home crowd. This game will be taking place at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a night game. I expect Gill Coliseum to be packed, and I think that Tinkle and some of the other Oregon State key players should be able to lead the Beavers to a nice victory here. So, Thompson's very solid as well. They still have Kelly, very solid rim protector. He's averaging 3.6 blocks per game for Oregon State. I think they should be able to win this game. This game will be close, but at the end of the day, I'll take the +2, as I think this game should come down to the wire based on the fact that the total has actually dropped a couple of points. If you've looked at the actual total, it has dropped from 139.5 to 136.5. So this game should turn into a defensive war, and I personally think that Colorado will struggle in such a hostile environment after choking away a potential statement win. So, for me, second play of the day will be on Oregon State +2, and that line is available at -109 on DraftKings. So, other than that, though, looking at some leans on the rest of the college basketball card, I'll start out with a matchup late in the pack. I'm going to start out with a matchup late in the West Coast Conference between Pacific and St. Mary's. I like the under 128 here in that matchup. The first matchup broke over 200 points, but that was just because of the fact that it went to 4 overtimes. So that game turned into an absolute war. But Pacific and St. Mary's are very solid defensive teams. Pacific really flying under the radar in the West Coast Conference. Of course, they won't get into the dance unless they're able to make a run in the actual conference tournament, because that whole conference is terrible. But St. Mary's just gave up 90 points to Gonzaga in their last game. I think they should be extremely focused to come out with a solid performance defensively. They also played a very slow pace. Pacific likes to play at a slow pace. I think this game should finish somewhere in the low 120s to the high 1-teens. I personally think first to 60 is going to win in this game. I think it will be low scoring. So lean to the under in the Pacific St. Mary's game. Other than that, looking at some of the other matchups here, I know that the one line that looked very interesting was the Michigan State game against Maryland. Michigan State, even though they were projected to make a deep run in March Madness this season, as they entered the preseason as a top 3 team in the country. They're currently unranked, and they play the number 9 team, Maryland, at 6 o'clock in Michigan State. However, Michigan State, despite being unranked, is a 6.5-point favorite against the number 9 team in the country. So that's a huge red flag in terms of lines. However, I just don't know if the spread is too high or not. Michigan State's one of those teams that you feel like should just be better than it is. Of course, they had some issues with regard to health because Langford never returned, and he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I think Maryland can hang tough. This line is questionable, so I personally will not touch it. However, there has been a lot of movement on the over, as it has gone from 135 to 138.5. So I'll lean to the over there. I think this game should be a little bit high scoring, as both teams should get into the 70s. If I had to lean anywhere, I would lean to Maryland plus the points, just because of the fact that I think the spread is too high. I would lean to Michigan State first half, though. I think that if they are going to cover this number, I think they have to get out to a fast start. I think Maryland could be inclined to come out a bit flat, as they have struggled on the road this season. But I think both teams should get into the 70s, so I would lean to the over in that one. Other than that, looking at the rest of the card here, so there's a lot of games just to look through here. Some games don't have lines up, etc. I'm going to lean to Kentucky -9.5 here against Ole Miss. Even though Ole Miss has played some decent basketball lately, as they were able to smack Mississippi State earlier this week, Kentucky at home is usually just too tough to deal with, as they are 13-1 straight up. Meanwhile, Ole Miss is 1-6 on the road. They're 3-4 on the road against the spread. Kentucky 6-8 against the spread at home. But Missouri 1-6 on the road. It's just concerning to me. I think Kentucky should be able to dominate on the inside with Richards, and I expect to see Maxey have a pretty solid game. Ole Miss, they're kind of on the bubble here for a tournament spot. They might actually be in line to get in. I'm not really sure, because honestly, every team, it seems like, is on the bubble this season. But overall, Ole Miss is 13-11, so they're definitely on the outside looking in. They could use this victory. But Kentucky in Rupp tends to just be too much to deal with, and I think that they just have the superior size. They're averaging roughly 3 more rebounds per game. They're averaging roughly 6 more points per game, and they're averaging roughly 2 less points allowed per game. I just think it's a mismatch. Kentucky, I think, will win by double digits. Lean it to the Wildcats on that one. But those are pretty much my thoughts on the betting card in college basketball on Saturday. So the 2 plays of the day, once again, are the Creighton and DePaul over 147, which is available at -110 on FanDuel, and the Oregon State +2, which is available on DraftKings at -109 and those are the 2 plays of the day. That's going to be the installment of Scott's selections here for Saturday, February 15th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.